Although I attempt to avoid it, I believe it is inevitable. I can't do this forever, you know. Since I was 21, I have been doing it. You say, hey, that's enough, as you approach your 80s. Robert Redford's life has been altered in ways that no one could have predicted due to a devastating catastrophe. The legendary actor is struggling with personal loss and adversity as he gets closer to turning 90. Beneath his glitzy persona and illustrious career comes a tale of profound grief and perseverance. What difficulties has he encountered in the background? What experiences have molded this cherished Hollywood icon into the person he is now? Come along as we unearth Robert Redford's unseen hardships and silent strength, exposing the tragic truth of his life. And it turned out to be one of my favorite partnerships ever. A life of sorrow and fortitude. The name Robert Redford has long been linked to charm, charisma, and success in Hollywood. His roles in iconic movies like The Sting and Butch Cassidy and The Sundance Kid have been revered for decades. However, beneath the celebrity is a tale of bravery and personal sorrow. As Redford gets closer to turning 90, we consider the hardships and setbacks that molded him into the person he is today and impacted his perspective on life and celebrity. His numerous successes on the big screen were not the only aspect of his life. It also dealt with personal struggles and heartbreak. Charles Redford, a milkman before turning to accounting, and Martha Hart welcomed him into the world on August 18, 1936, in Santa Monica, California, who encouraged her son's aspirations. Although his early years appeared bright, tragedy struck when he was just 18. His mother, Martha, died in 1955, a tragedy that had a profound impact on him. He later acknowledged that he had a remorse that persisted for years. He had taken her for granted when he was younger. Following the birth of twin girls who sadly did not survive, Martha experienced difficulties that ultimately led to her death. She desired a larger family even though doctors advised against becoming pregnant again. Unfortunately, Redford's perseverance resulted in a blood condition that ultimately took her life when she was still a teenager. Her passing created a huge hole in his life and signaled the beginning of a string of personal struggles that would last the rest of his days. He battled feelings of loneliness and loss following the death of his mother. The arts provided him with solace. This ultimately led to his career in Hollywood. He did not, however, have an easy path to fame. He was disobedient and frequently got into problems as a teenager. He engaged in dangerous activities like drag racing and small-time theft. There were run-ins with the law during this period, including one where someone was arrested for jewelry theft. He subsequently spoke of this experience as a wake-up call that strengthened his resolve to change his ways. He was able to secure a sports scholarship to the University of Colorado in spite of these obstacles, and he joined the baseball team there. But his love of art quickly overshadowed his interest in sports. Regretfully, his newfound independence at college took him in a problematic direction. He started drinking excessively, which resulted in his losing his scholarship and having to leave school. However, this failure signaled yet another life-turning point. He relocated to Europe and studied painting because he was determined to change his course. His viewpoint was widened and his sense of purpose was revitalized by the encounter. His life would be irrevocably altered when he finally made the decision to return to the U.S. to pursue acting. Despite his difficult road, he became an enduring Hollywood icon because of his bravery in the face of adversity. What kind of marital difficulties did he encounter? Heartbreak following heartbreak. Even though he was admired by everyone, Robert had serious family issues that went beyond the public eye. He with Lola Van Wagenen in 1958. When their infant son, Scott, passed away from illness, the young couple was soon faced with a devastating tragedy. They were already struggling financially, so the loss was devastating. This was one of the worst periods of Redford's life, he subsequently said. He and Lola leaned on one another and made the decision to continue raising their family in spite of this suffering. 3 more children, Shauna, Jamie, and Amy, were born to them. Their problems were far from ended, though. Jamie, their second child, was born too soon and suffered from severe respiratory issues brought on by hyaline membrane disease, endangering his life. Jamie lived despite the odds, but the event left the family deeply scarred, and Redford worried about it for years. One of his toughest tasks as a father was witnessing his kids' struggles. He once admitted that nothing made him feel worse than witnessing his kids suffer. This was particularly true for Jamie, who experienced significant health issues during his adolescence. Jamie's condition became ulcerative colitis, a persistent condition that eventually resulted in liver cirrhosis. The family found optimism when he received a liver transplant at age 31. However, he had to get another transplant due to problems. Redford and his family were under a lot of stress and anxiety. He was always present for his son despite being a busy director and actor. He flew to Omaha every weekend to be by Jamie's side in the hospital while Quiz Show was being filmed in New York. After he healed, Jamie went on to lead a fulfilling life as an environmentalist and filmmaker. At one point, his union with Lola Van Wagenen was regarded as one of the most solid in Hollywood. They put a lot of effort into creating a life together after getting married before he became a worldwide celebrity. However, both his demanding Hollywood profession and personal traumas influenced their relationship. Their marriage had a difficult beginning. Despite having just $300 in their possession, they were committed to building a secure existence. But they never fully recovered from the emotional wounds caused by the death of their first child, Scott. As his notoriety increased, he frequently spent extended periods of time away from home, leaving his wife to manage their household and the health of the kids by herself. To provide for the family, Lola sacrificed her personal aspirations, which caused a great deal of strain on her. Later, his career took off, and he spent months away from home working on big-budget movies like Out of Africa and The Natural. After 28 years of marriage, they divorced in 1985 due to the strain this distance caused in their relationship. He said in a 2001 interview that they both regretted their divorce decision. Due to their intense affection for their kids, Redford and Lola maintained a close friendship even after their marriage ended. He reflected on their time together and conveyed his sadness about the impact on their family, as well as the separation. When tragedy befell Robert Redford's children, what more profound anguish did he experience? The worst nightmare for a father. Redford's life is much more complicated than the glamour he portrays on screen. Even though the public views the star of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid as a man who has attained fame and money, he has experienced significant personal setbacks and hardships that have molded his path, despite his accomplishments. When his son Jamie passed away from liver cancer in 2020 at the age of 58, it was one of the most devastating events in his life. Redford had already gone through a lot of difficult times in his life, so this loss was a huge blow. Because of their shared passion for environmental preservation and storytelling, the father and son had a close relationship. Jamie was an environmental activist and filmmaker who left a legacy of passion and hope. His life was cut short after surviving 2 liver transplants and other health struggles, leaving his father with an unfillable hole in his heart. Redford, who cherishes his privacy, decided to grieve in private at his Utah ranch with his family. Additionally, his family requested privacy at this trying time. According to a statement from publicist Cindy Berger, Jamie was a devoted father, husband, and son who warmed everyone he came into contact with. Redford had already experienced a lot of grief, so losing another son served as a terrible reminder of how fleeting life is. It was not the first time he had suffered such loss, and the grief of losing a child is unfathomable. He had already talked about how painful it was to watch his kids suffer, and Jamie's death brought it up once more. He demonstrated that no amount of celebrity can shield a person from life's most difficult obstacles, even as the entire world grieved with him. Jamie had already experienced the loss of his child, which is every parent's worst nightmare. Therefore, his difficulties as a father started long before his health problems. Scott, Redford and Lola's first son, died of sudden infant death syndrome at the age of 10 weeks. This tragedy devastated the young couple, who were already having financial difficulties. SIDS was not well understood at the time, which left them both with a lot of unsolved problems and years of grieving in silence. Their marriage was severely damaged by the loss of their child. He kept his suffering to himself and hardly ever discussed it in public. He didn't reveal how much it affected him until years later, in memoirs and interviews. Silently, he backed Sid's study, in an effort to spare other families from going through the same suffering. Because of this tragedy, he was always afraid of losing the ones he cared about the most. After another horrific incident involving his daughter Shauna, he developed a protective attitude toward his surviving children. Shauna's car lost control and plunged into the freezing Jordan River while she was driving close to Salt Lake City. She was miraculously saved by a courageous bystander who dived into the icy water. Her father was relieved that she was saved, but he was also reminded of how fleeting life is. In 1983, Redford's daughter, Shauna's fiancé, Sid Wells, was murdered, adding to the trauma already experienced by his family from the loss of his son and daughter's near-death experience. Wells, a University of Colorado journalism student, was shot in the head and discovered dead in his residence. Thane Smyka, his roommate, was the main suspect. However, The murder case remained unsolved once Smika was freed and subsequently disappeared due to a lack of solid evidence. The Redford family was greatly affected by this unsolved crime. Deeply in love with Sid, Shauna was devastated and plagued by the unsolved questions surrounding his passing. Redford was profoundly impacted and frequently thought about how the killing of his daughter's fiancé felt like yet another awful turn of events. Law enforcement has stepped up their attempts to bring Smika to justice, but the matter is still unresolved, casting a pall over the family. When Robert Redford's fortitude was put to the test by the unexpected loss of friends and family, what emotional toll did it take? A friendship unlike any other. Robert Redford had begun to establish himself in Hollywood by 1950. He co-starred with Elizabeth Ashley in the Broadway production of Barefoot in the Park, which became his first significant break. Filmmakers were immediately drawn to him because of his youthful appearance and innate aptitude, resulting in his first major motion picture role, co-starring Natalie Wood, in 1965's Inside Daisy Clover. Redford and Wood developed a close friendship that would last the entirety of his career as a result of this. Sadly, Natalie Wood passed away in 1981 under unexplained circumstances. She perished while on a yacht with actor Christopher Walken and her husband, Robert Wagner. Redford was devastated since they had become close over their time working together. He had admired her as a friend as much as a co-worker. Her passing was a devastating blow that made him consider how fleeting life is. Later on, he talked about how much he appreciated Natalie Wood's true self, which lay beneath her fame. Redford's career was launched by Wood in their movie, Inside Daisy Clover, and he will always have a really positive memory of her. His friendships, particularly with fellow actor Paul Newman, gave him strength and support while he dealt with the highs and lows of his own life. On the set of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, they became pals. There was no denying their on-screen chemistry, and it continued into their private lives, where they had a naughty sense of humor in addition to mutual respect. The two had a reputation for pulling practical jokes on each other. When Redford gave Newman a dented Porsche for his 50th birthday, the car was smashed and given back to Redford as a sculpture. Their friendship was always characterized by this light-hearted competitiveness, but it was obvious that their connection went well beyond jokes. Newman was there for him when his 28-year marriage to Lola Van Wagenen ended in 1985. He explained that their bond was more than simply a Hollywood friendship, describing it as a strong brotherly bond that supported him during some of his most trying moments. Because he could always count on his friend's constant presence, he also turned to Newman in times of personal crisis. Newman tragically died in 2008. Redford was devastated. He frequently thought back on the fun and joy they had enjoyed over the years, which stood in stark contrast to the pain he had experienced throughout his life. He said losing Newman was like losing a brother. He experienced major emotional turning points in his life with the deaths of Paul Newman and Natalie Wood, but they also made him realize how important friendship is in his life. What impact did his complex relationship with fame have on his professional decisions and Hollywood legacy? The cost of celebrity. Robert has always had a complex relationship with celebrity, even in spite of his many accomplishments. He rose to fame in Hollywood thanks to his rugged good looks and unquestionable charm. However, he frequently voiced his unease with the publicity that accompanied his famous position. He wished that his talent, not his looks, would be acknowledged, a frustration he frequently expressed to his loved ones. His battle with celebrity was made clear when he was rejected for the part of Benjamin Braddock in The Graduate because the directors thought he was too attractive to play a man who had trouble with women. He lost certain roles because of his appearance rather than his lack of aptitude. He once said that people forget about the acting when they focus on the appearance, the hair, and the teeth. He moved behind the camera to take charge of his career because he was tired of being typecast. He won the Academy Award for Best Director in 1980 for his work directing Ordinary People. This shift assisted Robert Redford in eschewing the phony, superficial elements of Hollywood stardom and allowing him to concentrate on expressing tales in a new way. He started to focus more on worthwhile endeavors that represented his actual passions and principles rather than merely appearing in well-known films. His life and career underwent a dramatic turn as a result of this transition, which enabled him to find greater personal fulfillment outside of the glamorous world of Hollywood. Even so, he acknowledges that the pressure to uphold a particular public image has had a major negative impact on him over the years when he looks back on his career. He became more picky about his jobs in his later career, only taking on projects that matched his own beliefs. He was able to leave the spotlight on his own terms thanks to movies like All Is Lost and The Old Man and the Gun, which he announced would be his last appearance. He decided to give up acting because he wanted a more peaceful existence away from the constant demands of Hollywood. However, he admits that being in the spotlight for decades has had an impact. Additionally, there are times when he wishes he could have avoided the limelight. One of his most significant contributions, outside of his acting career, is his support of independent filmmaking through the Sundance Institute, which he established in 1981. Filmmakers such as Quentin Tarantino, Steven Soderbergh, and Ava DuVernay have launched their careers at the Sundance Film Festival, which takes place every year in Park City, Utah. His goal was to establish an area free from the restrictions of business interests where artists could share their stories. He thought that movies had the ability to challenge social norms and encourage change, a conviction that has made Sundance a cultural phenomenon that has an impact on media and storytelling in general. He remained steadfast in his support of the arts even after resigning as Sundance's public face in 2019. His commitment to developing up-and-coming artists and supporting independent voices remains a key factor in the festival's success. However, what effects has Robert Redford's aging process had on his personal life, work, and health? Health issues and the effects of aging. Robert Redford is facing the inevitable toll that aging takes on the body as he gets closer to 90. He was widely hailed as one of Hollywood's most gorgeous leading men due to his athletic body. However, as he grew older, he was forced to face health issues. He had been able to keep up an active and healthy lifestyle for years, frequently going hiking, skiing, and doing other outdoor activities at his ranch in Utah. But he started to feel the physical strain of his earlier years. He has been candid about the discomforts of aging, frequently discussing how his formerly boundless vitality has given way to a need for additional sleep. According to his friends and family, he has changed in behavior and now behaves more serious and introspective. According to Redford, growing older has caused him to slow down and consider what matters most. Over the years, he has experienced the emotional toll of losing friends and loved ones in addition to the physical changes. He felt alone after close pals from his filmmaking days, including Paul Newman, passed away. Although he doesn't discuss it much, it's evident from the way he now lives a more subdued existence. People close to him have observed that he is not as enthusiastic as he once was, despite the fact that he continues to work on his artistic and environmental projects. He is resilient in spite of these challenges. As part of his legacy, he continues to work for topics that are important to him, such as environmental protection. His commitment to independent film and his work with the Sundance Institute guarantee that his impact on the business will last long after he is gone. Nonetheless, it's evident that this Hollywood icon has been impacted by nearly 90 years of existence. In what ways has his difficult life influenced who he is now? A life of introspection. As he approaches his 90th birthday, his life is a compelling story of both sorrow and success. Redford's personal life was characterized by profound grief and loss, despite the gloss and glamour that characterized much of his public persona. His soul has been permanently marked by the passing of his mother, the health struggles of his children, the passing of close friends, and the dissolution of his marriage. He has shown bravery throughout it all, nevertheless, by channeling his suffering into igniting his passions. He is now more introspective and frequently discusses the things he has discovered. He admits that although popularity brought him notoriety and fortune, it also had a price, which he was frequently unwilling to pay. After a lifetime of being in the spotlight, his decision to retire from performing and concentrate on his personal life shows a yearning for tranquility. He now finds solace in life's small pleasures. He spends his days in the company of his grandchildren, surrounded by both family and the outdoors, doing ecological initiatives and silently thinking back on a life that has been anything but typical. The human spirit's capacity to persevere, adjust, and discover purpose despite hardship is demonstrated by his story. He will always be remembered by many as the sexy Sundance youth, the endearing Jay Gatsby, or the fearless investigative reporter from All the President's Men. He is much more than that, though, to those who are familiar with his story. He is a man who has gracefully handled the most difficult situations in life, a father who supported his kids during their most trying times, and a friend who placed the highest importance on loyalty. As his life draws to a close, he serves as a reminder that there is always a way to find peace and atonement, even in the midst of terrible grief. He will soon be 90 years old, and his influence extends well beyond the realm of film. He has left a lasting impact on environmental concerns, indie cinema, and Hollywood. Now, as he quietly ushers in the new year at his serene Utah ranch, He leaves a legacy of courage and commitment to the causes that are important to him. Future generations will be inspired by his life, which was full of both joy and hardship and serves as a reminder of the strength of the human spirit. How do you feel about the disasters that Robert Redford has experienced? What else might his struggles tell us about him? Let us know what you think by leaving a comment. For more, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Click the following video that appears on your screen as well. You'll like it.